It's not at all a peaceful morning. The crops have walked out of the field. There they go again.
Down with the farmer. We need manure.
We need water. No food till we get what we need.
Looks like no one has been taking care of the crops. They haven't been getting enough nutrition. The fields have also not been watered well. This way, the fields will soon go dry, and the crops will perish.
In this lesson, you will know about the need for crop resources and the different farming practices to improve crop production. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the need for crop resources, describe the methods in selecting a high-yield crop variety, describe the factors involved in enhancing crop production, and describe the ways in protecting the crop for enhancing crop production.
Hi, I'm in charge of guarding the crops. But these days, the birds have gotten wiser, and they are not scared of me. I must think of other ways to protect the crops. The farmer says that food demands are increasing every day, and we need to work harder to improve yields. I can't think of any reason for this increase in demand. Can you?
The population of India is more than 1 billion and is increasing. Therefore, there is an increasing need to feed this growing population. Recent efforts to increase food production have proved successful. The Green Revolution contributed to increased food grain production, and the White Revolution contributed to increased availability of milk. Living organisms need food. Food provides nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals for growth and health. Cereals provide carbohydrate. Pulses provide protein. Oil seeds provide fats. And vegetables, spices and fruits provide vitamins and minerals. In addition to these, fodder crops provide food for livestock. We obtain most of our food from agriculture. Different crops require different climatic conditions to grow. Kharif crops are grown in the rainy season, which is from June to October. This season is called the Kharif season. Paddy, soybean, maize, cotton, green gram and black gram are Kharif crops. Rabi crops are grown in the winter season from November to April. This season is called Rabi season. Wheat, gram, peas, and linseed are Rabi crops. In India, the production of food grains increased 4 times from 1960 to the year 2000. This increase in food production is due to crop variety improvement, crop production improvement, and crop protection management.
I am glad that crops are really being looked after. But how do we arrive at a high-yield crop variety?
We find the high-yield crop by a process of selection. The criteria for the selection could be high yield, disease resistance, response to fertilizer, tolerance to climate, etc. Desirable traits are incorporated into the plant by the process of hybridization. In this process, genetically dissimilar plants are crossed. It is one of the methods for crop variety improvement. Hybridization happens by cross-breeding genetically different plants. This crossing may be between two different varieties, known as intervarietal crossing, between two different genera, known as intergeneric crossing, or between two different species, known as interspecific crossing. Another way of improving crop yield is by introducing the desirable genes into the crop plant. This results in genetically modified crop plants that are able to survive in a drought and waterlogged conditions.
Now I get it. Since crop yield is related to weather, soil quality, and availability of water, crop varieties that can grow in different conditions are developed.
Now let us look at the reasons why crop variety improvement is done. The primary reason is to increase the yield of the crop. A second reason is to improve the quality of the crop products. For example, to improve the protein content in pulses, oil content in oil seeds, and preserving quality in fruits and vegetables. A third reason is to develop crops resistant to biotic factors like bacteria and insects, and abiotic factors like drought, salinity, waterlogging, heat, and cold conditions. A fourth reason is to develop crops with a shorter duration from sowing to harvesting, as it is economical. A fifth reason is to develop plants with a greater adaptability to climatic conditions, so that multiple rounds of crops can be grown in a year. The sixth and final reason I will give you is to introduce desirable characteristics. For example, tallness and profuse branching are desirable for fodder crops, while a shorter height is desired for cereals. Fewer nutrients are consumed by these crops, and they give higher yield.
Wow! That's incredible! The farmer will be thrilled to know that so much could be done to improve the yield.
Crop production improvement is the protection of crops that are growing or have been harvested. It is the farmer's purchasing capacity that decides the cropping system and production practices. Nutrient management, irrigation, and cropping patterns can help to improve crop production.
Okay, now I understand why the farmer keeps saying that plants need nutrients for growth just like we need food for our growth. Well, it's different that I don't get much of a chance to grow.
there are 16 nutrients that are essential for plants. Nutrients are supplied to plants by air, water, and soil. Air supplies carbon and oxygen. Water supplies hydrogen and oxygen. Soil supplies the rest of the 13 nutrients to the plants. Among these 13 nutrients, 6 nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur are required in large quantities. These are called macronutrients. The other 7 nutrients, such as iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and chlorine, are used by plants in smaller quantities. These are called micronutrients.
I get it. That means a deficiency of these nutrients makes the plants prone to diseases. So, to improve crop production, the soil must be enriched with these nutrients. But how is this done?
This is done with manure. Manure is produced naturally by the decomposition of animal excreta and plant waste. Manure contains organic matter and thus increases soil fertility. It also improves the water-holding capacity in sandy soils and prevents water logging in clayey soils. Based on the kind of biological waste, manure is classified as compost, vermicompost, and green manure. Let's focus on compost first. Compost is prepared by decomposing farm waste like livestock excreta, vegetable waste, domestic and sewage waste in pits. This process is called composting. Compost is also prepared by using earthworms to fasten the decomposition of plant and animal wastes. This is called vermicompost. Before sowing crop seeds, plants like sunhemp are grown and ploughed into the soil. These green plants enrich the soil with nitrogen and phosphorus. This is called green manure. Apart from natural manure, fertilizers are also used to improve crop production. Fertilizers supply nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to the plants.
But I have seen that the continuous use of fertilizers kills useful microorganisms and even destroys soil fertility. What about that?
That is why the chemical fertilizers are being replaced with biofertilizers. These are some biological agents used in organic farming. Blue-green algae are used to prepare biofertilizer. And neem leaves or turmeric are used in grain storage as biopesticides. Uses of biofertilizers are emphasized to maintain soil fertility.
Wow! That was eye-opening information on natural and chemical nutrients. I must ask the farmer to use more biofertilizers from now on. Wonder what else can be done to improve production.
Success of crops in most areas is dependent on timely monsoons and sufficient rainfall. To ensure that crops get water at the right stages of their growing season, more agricultural land needs to be brought under irrigation. What is irrigation? Irrigation is the artificial supply of water to the soil by different means such as wells, canals, rivers, and tanks. Let's take a closer look at the different methods of irrigation. Fields with no source of river water are irrigated with water from the wells. Wells are of two types, namely dug wells and tube wells. In a dug well, water is collected from the water-bearing strata. Tube wells can tap water from the deeper strata. Water is lifted from tube wells by pumps. Canals receive water from reservoirs or rivers. The main canal is divided into branched canals to irrigate the fields. In areas where the canal flow is insufficient due to inadequate reservoir release, another method known as river lift systems is used. In this method, water is directly drawn from the rivers. Here are some tanks. Tanks are small reservoirs which store runoff water. Recent attempts to increase the availability of water involve rainwater harvesting. Rainwater is harvested in check dams, which increase the groundwater levels and reduce soil erosion.
Hey, take a look at this farm. There are two types of crops growing at the same time. That's very smart, isn't it?
Different ways of growing crops can be followed to give maximum benefit. Cropping patterns used for greater yield are mixed cropping, intercropping, and crop rotation. Mixed cropping is growing two or more crops simultaneously on the same piece of land. Examples include wheat and gram, or groundnut and sunflower. This gives some insurance against the failure of one of the crops. Intercropping is growing two or more crops simultaneously on the same field with a few rows of one crop alternating with a few rows of a second crop. Examples include soybean and maize, or finger millet and cowpea. The crops are selected such that their nutrient requirements are different. This ensures maximum utilization of the nutrients and also prevents pests and diseases of one crop spreading to the other crop in a field. Growing different crops in succession on a piece of land is known as crop rotation. The choice of crops depends on the availability of moisture and irrigation. With good crop rotation, 2 or 3 crops can be easily grown in a year. Examples include cereals alternating with legumes, soybean alternating with maize.
Look at these weeds. It seems like the farmer has become quite lazy these days. He needs to be told that weeds are dangerous for crops.
Nurturing crop plants against the damages caused by weeds, pests, and diseases is known as crop protection management. Weeds like xanthium, parthenium, and Cyperinus rotundus are unwanted plants in the crop field. They compete with the crop plants for food, space, and light, and finally reduce crop growth. Weeds can be removed by spraying herbicides or by mechanically removing them. Timely sowing of crops, intercropping, and crop rotation effectively control weeds. The use of resistant varieties and summer ploughing also destroys weeds.
Oh no! What are these? Somebody help me! Please!
These insects are called pests. They damage the crops. Generally, pests attack plants and reduce their yield. They cut the root, stem, and leaves, suck the cell sap, and bore into the stem and fruits. Pests can be controlled by using pesticides. Diseases in plants are caused by pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, and viruses, just like in humans. These pathogens are transmitted through soil, water, and air. They can be controlled by spraying insecticides and fungicides on crop plants.
Where have all the crops gone?
The crops have been harvested and the grains have been stored. But crops need protection during storage as well. Storage losses in crops are due to biotic factors like insects, rodents, fungi, mites, and bacteria. Abiotic factors like inappropriate moisture and temperatures in the storage place also damage crops. These factors lead to loss in weight and discoloration of the grains, which leads to poor marketability. Grains should be cleaned and properly dried, first in the sunlight and then in shade, before storage. Exposure to chemical fumes helps to kill pests. This process is called fumigation.
If we follow all these steps, we will definitely reduce storage losses.